Yazaki Wolf, and welcome to another Friday night art stream. Now we're doing the stream an hour early today because I have plans from noon my time, an hour from now your time, to go out and partake in my monthly D&D session. So that's something I'm kind of looking forward to. I've been kind of. Oh, let me change the mic again. Let's see, here's some right there. Okay, I've been actually wanting to do this for a while. I missed last month because of scheduling conflicts, so I'm kind of itching to get back in there with my level 2 halfling ranger and see if we can like bump him up a little bit more. But I don't know how many of you play D&D. It is something that I am quite into. I haven't. It's kind of a weird thing. I'll go into a little bit more about that in a second, but for now, let's just talk about what our project for today is. So today we are going to continue working on Kanakatana's animations. So you'll see here that I have I've made a couple animations for the enemy. I decided to go with the shadowy figure for the enemies for now. I may change that in the future, but I figure for now this would be the quickest one to make the animations for and get started with the initial iteration of the game. So what animations did I work on? So with the timeline 2, is that the first one? Let's see what this is. Yeah, so his just standard attack animation for when he comes within range of the player. He's gonna pause for a second and then attack him. And what's this one? I think that's just his walk animation that I did. And then this is his rage animation. So this is when he kind of goes into a rage mode, powers up, and then like charges forward and does an attack. So the last thing I need to do for the first iteration of the game is we're going to make a death animation for the enemies. So let's go ahead and make a new timeline. Let's see what we got here. Timeline. See, I'm still kind of a noob with animating in Clip Studio. I'm kind of a noob at animating altogether. So this will be a journey for all of us, I suppose. But let's see here. How did I make a new timeline? Timeline. Oh, there was an icon over here. Shinki timeline. There we go. And let's see here. We're gonna make this. I don't think we need a lot of frames, but we'll keep 9 for now. Hopefully that'll be good. All right. So we got this new timeline. Then for the new timeline, I need to make a new folder of animations. So I believe that's this here right here, animation folder. Yep. So new animation folder. And we're going to name this enemy death. And I believe after we finish this animation, that should be all the initial animations for the game for the first iteration. I believe. I'm not 100% sure on that, but we'll check with my my partner programmer in the future to see if he's missing anything else. So where were we? Okay, so we have this. We need to make a new folder in here. I'm going to just copy one of the ones from my other files. It's here. I think the walk animation would be the closest to the original. Or maybe not. Let's do walk, I think. Hold on. Not sure. Let's find out. Okay, so for our walk animation, take the first frame and throw that in there. Okay, so it looks apparently I have to duplicate the folder first. Can't just copy and paste the whole thing. Put that into enemy death. All right, so now we have to assign this. See, it's kind of confusing when you're first getting into this because you're in this folder and you're like, well, I can't see anything. And this is something I've been having to get used to, is that you have to actually assign each frame. So now I have to assign that I want to see what this frame is here that I just copy and paste it into here. So I'm going to right click here and go to 1A. Wait a minute. Why is it giving me these weird things here? Okay, so I'm missing a step because it's putting me into the rage folder. So how do I get it to be the enemy death folder? This is, oh, I see. I think because I'm clicking on this part here, I have to go down here to enemy death. Here we go. Now if I click on here, there we go. So now with the right click under enemy death folder, 1A is the first frame of that. There we go. So we have that. And let me just go ahead and put the ground on there so I can see where the ground is. I don't want that to be in the actual animation. It's just kind of a guide for me. And where were we? So we have this enemy here. And yeah, this looks like this is the idle pose. So this, see, that's a difficult thing is because I'm wondering in the death animation, the problem I guess I have is that I don't know where his sword is going to be when he dies. He could be like mid swing of an attack, so his sword isn't necessarily always going to be in this down position. But I suppose it's going to change in one frame, so it probably won't be too noticeable. We'll just have him like kind of knocked back or something, and it will just skip from wherever his sword was to where we're going to put it in this frame. So let's go ahead and we're going to draw over this. I'm going to hit the I don't know, what is this called? It's the layer color option here to just change the color layer so that I could draw over it, make a new layer on top of that, and on the new layer we'll change his position a little bit. And actually, let's go ahead and actually copy and paste this layer as well, just because what we can do is we can just use the amazing lasso tool of victory and rearrange things as we want. So, okay. We want his, well, let's figure out what to do with the sword later. So we'll take the sword out of the equation for the time being. And I want his body to kind of fall backwards like this. And then his legs and whatnot will switch this way. So there we go. That looks like a getting hurt type of pose. And now where could his body, where could his katana be? So I kind of like the katana pointing away, like he's getting knocked back, and so the katana is going to fall backwards too. Then move his whole body back a little bit. Maybe tilt that this way. So about D&D. So I have a long history of D&D. I want to say that I'm like a hardcore D&D player, but it's hard for me to say that because although I played a lot of D&D when I was younger, and I DM'd a campaign that was like an ongoing. I did like maybe 2 or 3 ongoing campaigns, each one going for about 2-3 years each, you know, with various groups of friends. But the thing is, I never really played D&D the way that D&D players play D&D, and I guess the reason for that is that I was given a D&D rule book as a kid, probably like when I was like 12 or maybe even younger, I don't remember. And I read through the whole book, I learned the rules, and then I wanted to play. But no one that I knew played D&D. So that's why I became the DM, right? And I DM'd, so since I was the DM and I didn't know any other DMs, and it wasn't like nowadays where you could go to the internet and have like YouTube videos with DMs talking about how they DM or anything. I just interpreted the rules as I saw them, and I started playing. And you may be aware, if you're like if you do board games, like I used to design board games, and a lot of times whatever any way that your rules can be misinterpreted, they will be misinterpreted. You have to understand that as a game designer. And so that in a way, when I was playing D&D, I'm pretty sure that there were some rules that I misinterpreted, especially when you consider that I was only 12 years old. And then there were other things that was just like, I was kind of a, I don't know what the word would be, like a free-minded person. I don't know, like, so if say for example, if one of my friends who doesn't play D&D, so this is probably a big difference about the way I played it and the way that people seem to play it now that I actually am playing in established D&D groups, is that with the established D&D groups, like each person, like the players all have all know the rules. They have the player handbook, they've read the rules, and they have their player sheet and everything. When I played it, since none of my friends knew what D&D was or anything, like I knew all the rules, but my friends didn't. You know, and I didn't want to tell them, hey, I have this new game I want you to try. Here's a 250-page manual I'd like you to read first so you can figure out how to make your character. Like, I don't imagine that would have gone very well. So what I would do is, give me 1 second to figure out what I'm doing with this illustration first. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good for his just initial getting hit. So we're gonna copy this and paste it, and then we're gonna have, I think I'm gonna have him kind of get cut in half. But since he's a shadow, I don't see any reason why he can't be just cut in half and then evaporated. All right, so once again we signed this enemy death. I'm gonna have to change the titles of these folders. Let's just put 2 for now. All right, so 2. There we go. And actually, for the first folder, we don't need the bottom one that we made blue anymore. So we could go ahead and delete that. Delete. All right. Now we're going to frame 2, and also in frame 2, we're going to delete this guy. And if we put on the ghost layers, we'll be able to see the layer underneath it without having to change colors of the or duplicate layers or anything. So you can see the first layer there. Okay. So what was I saying? So what I would do is, since I can't have them learn the rules, I would just say, okay, let's play this game, and don't worry about it. Just tell me, like, all you have to do is I'm gonna tell you a story, and you're gonna tell me what you want to do in the story. And that's basically how I played D&D, and it worked really well because I knew all the rules, so I could handle like their player sheets and everything, and all the players had to do was they just had to sit down and imagine and just enjoy, and it worked really well, I think. And one thing that kind of came from that though is, so since the players didn't know the rules, they would say like, hey, I want my character to be like a half dragon monk or something, because we're like 10, 12-year-old kids, they'll come up with anything. And if it was like D&D nowadays, they'd be like, well, there's no half dragon monk class. I mean, there might be now because there's like I think Dragon Bone or some other type of class that was added, but back then, second edition D&D, there wasn't anything like that. And so like, if it was actual, how should his head move? So if I'm getting cut in half, I think you should actually keep the momentum moving downward. Actually, maybe move up to a little bit. But since he is a shadow, his body could kind of float, I would imagine. Yeah, that kind of works. And actually have his sword. So he's losing strength, so his sword's going to drop a bit, like so. All right, there we go. Okay. And what was I saying? So see, this is where he's gonna get cut. So we'll have like some slashing motions there. That's kind of cool. So nowadays you'd be able to say like, oh no, sorry, that class doesn't exist. Like pick from these classes or whatnot. And I suppose back then I probably could have done that. I'd be like, I could have just had to list and say, okay, pick from these classes or whatnot. But even outside of that, like they might already have a character that's like one guy, he wanted to be, I think he wanted to be like a ninja, and there was no ninjas in my world. Like it was not like there was no, Japan doesn't exist in the world that I made. So it's like, okay, well, you can be a member of the Thieves Guild. And I'll make a guild that's they're sort of like ninjas. They don't call them ninjas because like it's not Japan, but they'll have all the basic attributes of ninjas. And then from there I actually ended up building up like this whole lore where there was like a rival guild too. Like and I remember it was I think I went into like Wikipedia. I don't know if Wikipedia was even around back then. I don't remember where I looked, but I looked for all. It was probably I think it was a thesaurus. I looked at a thesaurus of all the kind of different ways to say shadow. And I made like this whole like society rules about this quote unquote ninja thieves guild that had all these different, like all the different words for shadow were like different rankings in the clan. And what was the clan called? I forgot. But so anyways, like the point is that since my players didn't know the rules and I didn't require them to know the rules, I never would tell them, no, you can't do that because that's not part of the rules. And I think that changed the game quite a bit, just because the rules the rules were the method that I would use to figure out. I don't really like that cut. I think it needs to be more parallel. The rules would be what I would use to figure out how to interpret what they wanted. And I think that made the game morph in ways that it probably wouldn't have morphed if all the players already knew how to play the game. Because I've been noticing that now that I'm playing with actual like D&D players, is that since everyone knows the basic rules and what the game's supposed to be like, no one decides to do things that are completely outside of the box. You know, like everyone kind of knows the deal. Whereas when I was playing, like people did things that were really outside of the box. And I've been listening to like some D&D videos lately where they would talk about like issues with the games where like what not to do as a player. And I remember like one of them was like never split the party. That's a big one. And the other thing was like never, what was it? Sorry, I'm just it's hard to talk when I'm thinking about strategically about what I'm doing in the drawing. There you go. I think that works for the most part. It's kind of low. Maybe I'll make the cut a little bit higher. But yeah, so not splitting the party. That was a big one. I think the other one was like, oh yeah, one I thought was quite interesting is like, never be evil. Like if you get a choice to be evil from like an enemy, like don't never take it, even if maybe you think your character might, like, because that would be detrimental to the game and to the party. And there was one more that I was thinking of, like never. I forgot what the other one. It'll probably come back to me later. But like, so the thing was like, I never watched those things when I was younger. So in my game, all that stuff happened in varying degrees of frequency, and I just rolled with it because as far as I knew, you know, the game was like the rules were the rules that were there to figure out how to play the game with my players, and they weren't rules that were meant to kind of guide whatever my goals as a DM was. You know, my goal as a DM was just to interpret whatever my players were doing, and I think that kind of changed the way that I played the game quite a bit. All right, so we're gonna go to the next. We're gonna copy this and make number 3. Okay, and assign 3 to the 3rd frame. All right, just make sure you can see the bottom. Yep, cool. Hey, Mike, good to see you. I'm gonna read your comment in 1 second. I'm just what am I doing? I want to delete this layer. Yeah, and I saw in my on my tablet that you sent me something to watch when I have time. I will watch it soon. I'm sorry, like this week has been crazy. Like I am kind of, you may even be able to tell in my voice I'm a little exhausted. I've been working very hard, and I'll go into that a little bit actually. But let me read your comment first. You remember the shadow business? Think about yeah, I remember Matt Beyer. I think did he play? I think he made a character for a little while. Was he Yellow Jacket? I think he might have been Yellow Jacket. I remember there was one guy who made a character named Yellow Jacket, and I thought that was like a really like a creative name. I don't know where he got it from. I think he got it from like some type of movie or something. But actually, let me bring that back. I'm gonna rearrange these. Use the great and all-powerful lasso tool. So actually, I think it'd be good to just kind of blur him out now. That'd probably be the easiest way to do this. Maybe just stretch. So for example, we could take this, stretch that out a little bit. So it's sort of like he's getting knocked back, and the shadow form is kind of getting stretched. And then I'm probably going to smudge that a bit too. All right, now let's adjust that more. Next card, it wasn't really for me. Whatever the opposite of sneaky is, that's why. Yeah. It's funny because like I've been playing a sneaky character a lot in like Skyrim, but when I play, and I don't know, I've done sneaky sometimes in D&D as well. But there was one time where I tried playing a dwarf, and it's so not like what I usually do. But I did like this dwarven like battle. I forgot what it was called, but it was just like a berserker type dwarf guy. And basically, what he would do, his character was he would look for the strongest guy on the battlefield and just run up and hit him in the face with the axe. Like that was his whole motivation as a character, and that was tons of fun. Like I remember I did all these things. Like I was totally like what's the word shocking all the people I was playing with, because these were like more like standard D&D players, and it might be different in Japan than America. So if you're an American player, you're like maybe this isn't how it is with you. I just found in Japan they're very kind of by the books. They kind of don't really think outside the box very often. So like I had this dwarven character who he was like completely bloodthirsty, running after like the big whatever the big boss was, and he would like find a hobgoblin, and he found like a hobgoblin, and he cut off his head and like carried his head into the next room so that there was like a whole band of other like goblins or something to fight us, and he just took the hobgoblin's head and like threw it in the middle of them, like come on, fight me. And I don't know, it was so different than my regular character, but it was fun to play that day, because I think regularly I'm more or less sort of like what's the word, strategic, semi sneaky. I usually don't go full on sneaky, but like just enough. It's kind of roguish, I guess. All right, what am I doing with this? It looks like he's okay. So the shadow is starting to break apart. I think I'm gonna make the Facebook is really desperate to get me to go to their site lately. Like I don't even have Facebook open, and yet I'm getting all these like announcements saying, "Oh, this person wants to be your friend on Facebook." Like I don't even know who that is. But okay. All right, so where were we? And I feel like there was something else I said I was going to talk about outside of D&D, but I forgot what it was. Hopefully it'll come back to me. But yeah, so there's another thing before I forget that I want to do in this video. And Mike, I don't know if you saw the beginning, but I'm doing the video early today because I'm going to go play D&D later. So that's the reason for the D&D talk. But the other thing I wanted to ask for anyone who is watching either now or after the fact, I would like to know like what type of content you enjoy the most in these streams. Just because my channel has the kind of broad areas of Japan, art, and gaming. But when I'm doing these streams, like I tend to like to have a general topic in mind when I start. I'm always open for live comments of what topic you want to talk about, and I'll change it a whim for whatever. But in case there isn't any topic suggestions, I want to always have something in the back to have prepared. So if you all could let me know if you enjoy the Japanese videos, the videos talking about life in Japan, or videos talking about learning Japanese, or would you like me just give you like kind of like a story time thing where I could tell you something that happened to me recently while I draw? Let me get your feedback. I am pretty happy with the way that the stream's been going thus far, and I'd like to continue to kind of evolve that as we go forward. How's this go? Okay, so he's hit. He kind of falls back a little bit. You see the cut appear. The cut kind of grows, and yeah, I think I like that. I feel like I'm being a little too timid, though. I probably should do some bigger changes in frames, but I don't know. We'll figure that out later. So I think the easiest thing to do, and I mean, it may be kind of boring, and I may have to make another animation in the future, but for our first iteration, I may just make him continue like this and just disappear into the shadows, like he blows away like ash or something. So let's go ahead and make the fourth panel, and once again all we have to do is just copy that and then move forward a frame, assign that with the right click, and then go into the new folder, and that should do it. Okay. So other things I've been thinking about with in terms of content for the channel, just to get feedback. Let's see here. I'm gonna stretch him out a little bit more. There we go. So I'm definitely hoping to start the Japanese lessons soon. I may start doing I have an idea that if I could get time on the weekend, I'm going to try to just record a bunch of those in a row, and then I could just release them over the week. At first, I was thinking I could do it daily, but then I realized that for Japanese, it probably shouldn't be daily because I want to give you time to actually like digest the lessons. Because if it'd be like, okay, here's one lesson, hope you learned that. Let's go to the next lesson. Okay, hope you learned that. And, it's like you really need to have time to kind of digest the different parts. It's the other thing I wanted to mention that I forgot about was, so the reason why I'm kind of tired this week is I've been kind of really burning on all cylinders. I've been at work. I'm learning ZBrush, which is a 3D software, and I've been learning it for a while. So like that was actually really rewarding and fun to do. But now I'm using it more. How's the word? So now I'm starting to use it for my actual work, and I'm kind of expected to produce the same amount in the same amount of time that I used to do with this new software. So at first I was just enjoying learning a new software, but now it's like, okay, now I learned it, but now I actually have to like bump it up and actually produce things as quickly as I used to without that software. So so how do I say? I have to produce 3D stuff as quickly as I do 2D, which is a bit unfair because honestly, most of the other 3D artists have a lot more time to do their stuff. But the truth of the matter is that I'm not a 3D artist. I'm just kind of trying to, what's the word? Sneak my way into that because I'm the type of person that I always want to be growing. I always want to be learning new things, and so I really wanted to learn the 3D software just for my own like personal development. And so I had to convince them to let me use it. But since that wasn't my stig, as it were, I had to the way that I had convinced them is I have to be able to do the same work that I did before, but in 3D. And so I'm not the same rules as the other 3D artists where they get like, I don't know, a week or so to work on one model. Like actually, I think usually the standards they get like 10 days to work on one model. I don't really get that because I'm not fulfilling the same role as them. So I kind of feel like I'm on a bit of a pressure cooker in trying to get all those things to work. And there's just all these like kind of random annoying things that come up where even if you know how to use the software and how to make interesting like models, you have issues where, okay, I feel like I should probably delete a little bit more of that. Okay. But you have these issues where, say, for example, you put the model into Unity because you're going to like screen capture or something, and the textures don't load properly. You're like, what the heck? Why aren't the textures loading? And then you have to like go through tutorials and try to figure out how the textures load. But then you go through the tutorials and they're telling you like the wrong thing because they're talking about some other case where the textures don't load properly, but it's not the case that you're working on. So there's just lots of little annoyances that come up, especially when you're under a time pressure. So that was the one end. And then on the other end, I've been working on this game at nights, and that's enjoyable, but it's just always hard because this is one of the biggest things one of the main things I want to do during my day. And like I'll wake up in the morning, it's like, oh, I can't wait until I can start working on my game again. But then there's like all these tasks I have to fulfill before I can get to that, and so it's kind of stressful and annoying. And then on top of that, there was what was the other thing? Oh, also with YouTube, I've been thinking a lot about how I want to approach YouTube in the future, and so just kind of been like using a lot of my brain energy. So I feel kind of put out. So, but it should be fun doing the D&D session today. And in summary, that's why I haven't checked your video yet, Mike. I will get to it soon, though. I did really thoroughly enjoy the video you sent me on the weekend. I think I forgot the one that you made. I watched that Monday morning at work, and I think I actually watched it twice. It was a really interesting stuff there. I almost feel like I could like break it down to different points and kind of comment on each thing separately. But so you have no comments. So since you're asking, I'd love to hear you talk a little more about the history of FL. Yeah, if you can't remember some of it, I'll throw a couple of stories from FL. Yeah, awesome. Actually, that is something I'm planning on doing. So I already have the kind of working titles. I want to have one series called Dungeon Tales, and I think that's where we're going to just talk about all the different stories from FL to Foreverland to Lamosha. I think those are actually the three well, FL is Foreverland, and then the next incarnation was Lamosha. And then I had like a third incarnation of Lamosha later. So I want to go through all that, and I would definitely need your help for FL because the thing about Lamosha was in that was the really beginning days. With I'm sorry, Foreverland was the beginning. The Mosha, the second version, that one I kind of knew what I was doing a little bit more, so I made a point to record all the things that happened, and so that I could use it in the future. I didn't know what I was going to use it for, but I knew I liked game design. I knew I liked manga and things, so I didn't know like what I was going to use it for, but I figured I should probably keep these stories written down somewhere because there's a lot of interesting stuff happening. But with Foreverland, that was before that, so I don't really have a record per se. I think there was a notebook that we were keeping, if I remember correctly, that we would like write down the adventures, and then but I have no idea where that notebook is. Maybe it's in my house somewhere. I don't know. I'd have to search. But yeah, if you can tell me what you remember, that would be very helpful. Yeah, you have always pushed yourself quite hard to pick up new things. With this whole 2D to 3D upgrade you're doing, I hope that they're at least giving you a raise. Yeah, I did get a raise. It's not a significant raise. Honestly, I feel like I don't know, if it seems to me like the only way to really get significant raises in my experience has been to actually like change jobs, which I may have to do in the future. Like, and I don't mean change careers. I mean like change from one company to another company. Because usually when you switch companies, they're very willing to give you like a sizable amount more than your last company. But when you're in the first company, it feels like they just kind of give you like scraps to keep you from leaving. It's like, okay, well, we could give you an extra $50 a month or something. It's like, well, I mean, I guess that kind of helps. Like, that means I could what's $50 do for you in a month? I don't know. Like you could buy some extra groceries. I mean, I don't know. So, but I think one of the main reasons why, and that's another reason why I wanted to switch to 3D, is that I feel like 2D artists aren't really appreciated as much as 3D are. So I think that 3D does give you a higher bargaining chip in that area. So for any of you that are learning art, also animation as well. Another thing is to learn to do what other people don't want to do. So like for example, everyone wants to be a character designer. So if you want to be a character designer, you're gonna have to be really good to be able to do that, to be competitive in that area, because that's what everybody wants to do. So I mean, I think you should learn how to do it, because it's something that they're gonna want to see when you're being interviewed. But let me just check this. Okay. Yeah, I still don't know if there's enough of a change there, but I mean, it's probably enough. Let's do one more. 5. But in general, if you want to secure your place in a company where people aren't going to be readily available to replace you, it'd be good to learn things like backgrounds, creature designs. Well, creature design may outside of Japan, there may be more people that do creature designs and stuff like that. But in Japan, it seems like everybody just wants to do characters. So if you could do like background designs, creatures, like items, like weapons and things like that. Like I've been doing a lot of weapons in various, not just this company, but in my last company as well. And that's something I actually really enjoy. And I'm kind of going to go into that when I talk about escaping the moe style. Okay, I have to assign this. Assign that to 5. Cool. And I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually kind of blur out the whole thing and then add certain details back. So that way I have a better idea of where I'm trying to get to. Okay, so remember the human side, the spirit, the soul. Don't let these guys push you to breaking point. I'd hate to see someone take advantage of you. They're mistaking your kindness for weakness. Good point. I don't think that they particularly are pushing me. It's more me. It's more me pushing myself. Because truthfully, I could have just kept doing what I was doing, and with the 2D art, and generally they would give me like, say, they'd give me maybe two weeks for a batch of designs, and I would usually finish it in about 3 days. So it's like I was kind of on cruise control, and so it wasn't really that they were pushing me. They were extremely happy with everything I was doing, and I've gotten those small raises every time I've had a performance, what's the word, review. But I think just for me personally, I'm the kind of person that I'm driven by progress. And so the moment that I feel like I'm kind of in a comfort zone, I just naturally start pushing myself out of it. And so it's I'm kind of exhausted this week, but it's a good type of exhausted. And I think what it is also is like it's a balance where this week I kind of found my point where I kind of pushed myself a little too far. So now I can kind of reel it back a little bit. And that was another thing I wanted to talk about was like that balance of finding out when to take breaks and when to push yourself. So you don't want to just you don't want to always be pushing yourself, but you don't want to always be taking breaks either. I think I heard it from a different podcast or something, but I don't know where I got this from, but I call it like the input output what do we call it? Input output theory. I don't know, but basically, it's really hard to create new things to get to do that output without some input. So I use like video games and things like that as a source of input. You also like watching movies and then also just living. Like I don't know if you all know this, but I've kind of changed my outro to my videos to live boldly and be creative. And essentially that's what I'm saying is that in order to be creative and to do interesting things in life, you have to live boldly. And so through your life, you find you get that input of you're gaining information, gaining energy and whatnot, and like charging yourself up. And then also playing video games. A lot of artists, they talk about like video games, they'll waste your time, and they definitely can if you don't balance yourself. Like for example, I usually only play for an hour or two at a time, and that's part of the reason why it's kind of hard for me to do like a lot of multiplayer stuff sometimes, because like I'll try to play with people, and I'm like I play for an hour or so, and I'm like, okay, I'm good, let's take a break, and I'm gonna start working on some art or something for a while, and then I'll get back and play a game for a break later. But like my friends on the weekend that aren't artists, they're like, well, why are you gonna take a break? Like we're still going. Like we only did the dungeon once. We want to do it seven more times before we quit. And it's like you're gonna do the same dungeon 7 times? Like I don't know. So like I could definitely see how that addictive like element is there. But for me, I think if you balance it correctly, like games can be a huge source of like artistic inspiration, and just kind of seeing where the culture is going in terms of imagery and whatnot. What was I gonna say? So there's the input output. You gotta, and this is something also that my teacher told me in school when I was studying in Japan, when I was studying manga. One of my favorite teachers. I forgot what the class was called. I think it was like I forgot the name of the class, but it was basically about just finding ideas for good stories. And like that was the thing he'd always say, like you have to get out there and live. Like that's one of the most important things to be a good storyteller, to do good manga. And this because it was in manga school. It's like make sure you're out there living and experiencing new things, because that's where you get your ideas. So that was the whole live boldly part. And then be creative is like once you get that input, once you've actually internalized a lot of new things, you could fall into the trap of just getting the addictive behavior of constantly just wanting to get new experiences and wanting to always just look for that next like interesting thing. But if you just do that, then you're not creating anything. So the next part of it is be creative. So live boldly and then be creative means that you take what you've learned and actually create something out of it. And that it could be art, it could be like writing, it could be anything really. I think that you should create value with your life. I get that not everyone has that sort of creative impulse, but for myself personally, especially as an artistic minded person, like it's hard to live without that. So went through a lot of topics right there. Let me just think I want to fade them out a little bit more. So there's probably a lot of stuff I could continue with those topics, but the one other thing I wanted to mention before the podcast, or what is this called, stream, is finished today, was that today is Tanabata. And I will explain more about what that is, but I noticed there's a new comment, so let me just read that real quick. So I'll have to throw FL stories in the next video I send you. They are a rich tapestry that cannot be recounted in a short. Yeah, definitely. I think video would be the best way to do that. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen Counter Monkeys. It's a series that's done by this guy named was it Noah? I forgot his last name, but the Spoonie one. And there's a lot of controversy around that guy because I guess guess he kind of like self-destructed in various ways. But back in the day, he used to make really good videos, and he had a series called Counter Monkeys where he would just talk about, he would just sit down on a couch and talk about his old D&D days. And I imagine if you just did like something like that, where you just like sat down or just be outside walking or whatever thing and just go through the stories, like that could be quite entertaining. And I would find it really interesting to hear, especially since I've probably forgotten a lot of the stuff that used to remember. There's so much to it, but yeah. So the other thing I was going to mention was that today is in Japan is Tanabata, so it's another thing that's kind of busy this week. Tanabata is a holiday. Well, it's not really like not exactly a holiday. It's a celebration in Japan, where so it's believed that there was this old story that there, if you look in the sky, you know, you have the Milky Way, and there's two stars that are on separate sides of it, and there's a story that's attached to that where one of the stars is called Orihime, and that was a ancient princess, and the other is what was his name? Hikoboshi. Hikoboshi. I'm pretty sure that was his name. I forget the guy's name sometimes, but the girl's name is Orihime. I remember her name because there's a lot of characters like named after her in different anime and manga and stuff. But so Hikoboshi, I believe, and Orihime, they fell in love because Orihime used to like, she used to go to the Amanogawa, which is the river of heaven. In other words, the Milky Way. She would go there and she would I think she would like wash like her clothes, and I think she made like beautiful like clothing, and she would give the clothing to her father, and her father was really happy with her, and he introduced her to, I believe it was him, I can't remember exactly, but either him or someone else introduced her to Hikoboshi, and they fell in love. But then they got married, and apparently once they got married, she stopped making the clothing for her father, and like the silks or whatnot. And then I believe Hikoboshi also, like, he brought like bulls or some type of livestock and into heaven, and like the father was upset that he brought the bulls or whatever. So the short end of making a story short, the parents got upset, or the father particularly got upset. So they decided that they couldn't be together anymore, and they broke them up. And so they put them onto opposite sides of the Amanogawa, the river of heaven, and they were told that they could only see each other. Well, I think the Orihime like begged that she could to be able to see him again, and eventually the father said, okay, you can see each other once a year on Tanabata, and that's the seventh day of the seventh month. So that's what today is in Japan. I believe on your side of the country it's maybe not the seventh day yet, so I guess for you it might be tomorrow. And I said country, but I meant world, your side of the globe. So the kind of celebration there, I don't exactly understand the connection here, but for some reason the celebration is that we write our wishes and our kind of like requests, or negai, our wishes, onto these pieces of paper, and we hang them onto trees. And they have all these sort of like celebrations and stuff. Let me see if I think I found it on Google. Yeah, so here we go. So you have all these sort of like celebrations where if you go to like Shibuya or somewhere in Tokyo, they'll have these kind of processions with all these like really colorful processions and stuff, which is really cool to see. And do they have the trees? Where's the trees? Bamboo. Yeah, this might be it, but I can't quite see. Let me see if I can find Tanabata Negai Goto. There you go. Yeah, so see, people would write their wishes on these like papers, and then they string the papers up onto bamboo trees like this. And there's specific bamboo trees. I mean, I imagine maybe in like rural areas they might be actually in the wild, but usually they'll have it in like it'd be something like this. Like there'd be a tree planted, then you would like put your wishes on there, and so everyone kind of puts their wishes. And I'm not exactly sure what the wishes have to do with the original story. Like, is it the father in the story that's going to give them their wish? I don't know exactly how that works, but so that's what we do. And it's in summer, so there might be like fireworks and other things, but it's kind of a cool little Japanese tradition that you'll notice if you come here. Live boldly yet maintain balance. You're hitting like the mission statement of my life. These are things I always strive for and try to achieve. Yeah, I kind of got that vibe when I was watching your video. It's like it seems like you've definitely grown in that area, um, and I'm really happy to see that because I remember probably one of the last conversations that we had in person. Well, no, because we saw each other the one time when I came back. But when I used to live in America, I remember one of the last times we were talking. Like you were talking a lot about like kind of like Eastern wisdom and stuff that you're looking into, and I thought that was kind of cool. So it seems like you've continued down that path of seeking wisdom and kind of finding your own path in life, and very, very, very good to see that that's continued. And I think that we both kind of have a bit of that where we're trying to not kind of be limited by just one sort of way of thought, but to kind of learn from as much as we can and apply it to ourselves. And not really like really with your hairstyle. Was it called a cue, where you say like you don't really care if some people don't like it, but like it has meaning to you? I think that's really what it is. You find what has meaning to you, and that doesn't really matter what. I mean, you should definitely consider what other the ideas and thoughts of other people, but ultimately, it's about you finding your own path. And the other thing you said that I thought was really interesting, was it that I think the word you used was catalyst. You said you're always the catalyst. So like you would have your uh, your weight loss cap, I think it was, right? And you would say that you would tell people like you wear this and it will help you lose weight or whatnot. But ultimately, you're the catalyst. You're the one that's motivating yourself to actually do that. And I think that links into what I was going to say next, was that I think it's cool with the Tanabata to be able to make a wish. And so I think I'm going to make wishes. I make wishes during this time and think about like, use this opportunity to think about where I want to go with my life, how I want to improve. But it's not just about making a wish, right? Because yeah, you can make you make the kind of symbolic gesture, but ultimately you're going to be the catalyst. So you're the one that makes the move. It's just that you use sort of a metaphysical or a symbolic representation of your will, and that becomes your motivation to move forward in a way. And I think there's a whole lot that can be said about that. I think that was really interesting when you mentioned that, because it reminded me. There was a time where I was interested in like Wicca and other types of religions and things, and I think that one thing I came out of it was that it didn't really matter what it was that you were you were believing, or what you were like putting your thoughts behind. It was more just that these were kind of tools or symbolic tools to motivate you to make yourself the catalyst to move forward. So how is this going? All right, so I feel like I have a little bit too many frames, because it shouldn't take too long to die. But I don't know, it looks like it works all right. So the next one will just have like completely like a cloud of smoke, and then that would be the end of it. But I think here what we want to have is that since he is a shadow, I think I want it to be floating into the sky. So let's pull it up a little bit more. There we go. But yeah, so for all of you listening, I think that it is Tanabata in Japan, and it will be there probably close to the time that you watch this, if you're not watching live, or if not tomorrow morning. So take this opportunity to kind of think about what your wishes are for the future. Try to kind of think about what you want to do to move your life forward. Thinking about those things early is very important, because as I've grown up and grown older, I found that there was so much time I could have, like right now I'm learning so much right now. I'm developing myself so much, but if I had been doing this when I was younger, like how much more could I have achieved by this age, you know? But that being said, also I wouldn't worry too much about having to find the one thing you're going to do for the rest of your life when you're young. I think you have to use that time to experiment and try different things. But I think the key thing is that, yeah, you should try different things, try learning, try improve. I think basically just think about moving forward and gaining. If you put it in RPG forms, gain XP. You know, just level up. You know, don't worry too much about what area you're leveling up when you're young. When you're older, you probably should figure out exactly where you're putting your skill points, as it were. But when you're young, just make sure that you're leveling up, and Yeah, so think about your Tanabata negai, and that would be your Japanese word for the day. Negai means wish, so think of your Tanabata negai, and then I would say figure out goals about how to get yourself there. Okay, so we got. I think I like this, but I'm gonna make this one also stretch out a little bit more. How does that look? Okay, it says hit slashed fading, fading. Okay, and then last one, he'll be like a complete cloud at this point. Probably shouldn't have too much more than six frames. I may put one more after this just to have like a final point of him disappearing, but we're almost there. All right, you got it, man. Our love of Eastern culture has showed us that people have the power. Us. We've been following that since we were kids. Yep, that is very interesting. Like the way that it seems that if even if you look at just fantasy art and like fantasy games, often the Western iterations have things outside of you being the source of the power, right? Like the like finding Excalibur or whatever, and like something outside of you is the source of your power. Where in a lot of Eastern like philosophies, it seems like it is something that's found within you, and I think that always did seem interesting to me, seemed true to me, and but even now, like it's kind of interesting. Like even Japan, though, like it's strange how a lot of people have kind of lost sight of that because, you know, even in Japan, it seems like right now not everyone still holds that type of kind of mystical thoughts, and sometimes I have conversations with my wife where she's really like surprised at the way I think sometimes because I don't know. I think that's probably something to go into a different video, but yeah, modern Japan versus old Japan is kind of interesting how there's not quite a 1-to-1 ratio there. But next comment: sadly, America teaches people that it's the institution that has the power. Good thing you got out of here, or they would have blunted your sword. Yep. Yeah, I kind of feel that, and so that goes back to what I was gonna say, where it's like my wife actually, she finds America very appealing, and she talks about going to live in America, whereas for me, I actually find it a lot nicer here. And what was I gonna say? Sorry, focusing on too many things at once while I'm drawing. Okay, my strength has always come from believing in myself and knowing that I want people to have strength and be honorable. When you are comfortable with yourself, you can do anything and you have no fear. Yep. Like I think it was Saul Perez. I don't remember, but like I think like there was a comment he wrote like when we were young, and it was like being cool is like is being comfortable with yourself. That's a very loose paraphrase, but he wrote something like that in one of our like notebooks that we would pass around when we were kids, and I was like, that is so true. And I remember that like that kind of sunk into me, that I would always, that for me being cool as a kid, it wasn't about trying to fit in. It was about just being comfortable with who I was, and I think that's really the key to not just being cool, but just being a fulfilled person. I think the more you're trying to fit into other people's molds, the more you just lose yourself and you lose who you are as a person. Whereas if you can find out what makes you tick, then that's where you're gonna feel really fulfilled. And I mentioned it to you in the comments of your other video, Mike, but like I went through a lot of changes, and I don't think I was necessarily trying to fit into someone else's mold per se. I mean, it was sort of in the vein of searching for truth and kind of like wisdom. But I think in that search, I thought I found something, and then once I thought I found it, I kind of tried to make myself completely conform to it. And it was only recently that I realized that a lot of the things that were really who I am were things that I had discovered when I was really young. And I've kind of actually been going back to a lot of my original my original passions when I was a kid, and revisiting them now as an adult and kind of reinventing them. And I feel like I've been finding myself in new ways through that. Okay, I think I'm going to turn off the shadows because it's hard to kind of tell. There we go. Okay. It was hard to tell what I was actually working on. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so he's slashed, goes up, and let's just blend this bottom part a little bit more. Okay. The other thing I really need to work on is learning how to talk and draw at the same time. I feel like I have to like pause whenever I start drawing. Which is probably not the best for a stream. Okay, I am liking that though. So I'm going to have one more just cap on the end where he's pretty much completely gone. And that'll be the death animation for the enemy. 7, all right. There we go. My biggest thing has always been the phrase, "Your opinion of me is none of my business." Oh, I like that. I know who I am. I don't think I've heard that before. Your opinion of me is none of my business. That is quite true. Yeah, that's their opinion, so that's their business. And that's something I've kind of like one of the areas where I talk to my wife a lot, and she's kind of surprised at the way I think, and because I think in Japan, unfortunately, it's what's the word? Haji. It's a shame-based culture. So people don't. So there aren't really a lot of how do I say it? There's a lot of things that people don't do, not because they're scared of being punished, but just because they're scared of being shamed for it. So, for example, and it seems to work fairly well because there's a lot of things that I see here that would never work in America. Like there's stores that will have their products actually displayed outside of the store. You know, like so with no one watching. So like because they just trust that no one would be as shameful as to just take something from outside, something that's displayed there and just walk away. They know that if you see something that you like, you're going to take that, you're then going to walk into the store and then go up to them and pay for it, like because it would be shameful to do anything else, you know. So like there's just things like that I know would never really work in America or other countries that but they work here because of that kind of shame-based culture. But then the flip side of that is that people are very concerned with the way other people view them, and so sometimes like I'll be talking to my wife and she'd be like, "Oh, but I don't want to look like this." And like, who cares what other people think about it? And they're like she's like, "Oh, I can't believe you can think that way." Like, so it is kind of a pro and con, I guess, in that way. Looks like I have a lot of stuff built up on the bottom. Gotta delete that. But yeah, that's a whole nother video about the pros and cons about Japan. And it's really hard to talk about because Japan is like full of contradictions. But I do love it here, and I think I do prefer it here over America. There are pros and cons in both, though. All right, so I think that works. Okay, so he's dumb. Okay, then he's gone. All right, cool. So now I have a whole bunch of animations ready for this, and I think so. If anyone watched last week and where I didn't know where I kind of wasn't sure how to get it to move in Unity, I did an updated video where I added how to do that. I don't think I'm going to do that in this video just because I have 4 animations that I have to put into Unity, and that's going to take a while, and it's a lot of this technical stuff that I can't really do while talking because it's a lot of like thinking about where you're putting files and how you're naming them and things like that. But that works, so I'm going to save that. And it is 12 o'clock, so I actually have to get in the shower and head over to my D&D game. So hopefully that was a interesting and fruitful time for you. Next week announcements. So next week we're going back to Hell. Me and Tony from Sketchflix, we're going to be playing Diablo 3. Nihongo Gamer is too scared, so he's not going to be around. But me and Tony, we're going to we're gonna dive into those depths and see what we can get out. And then 2 weeks from there, I what was it? What was that? So 2 weeks from there, I probably will take a break from live stream because my wife invited me to a video game kind of concert thing, so we're gonna go to that. So that's the itinerary for the next couple weeks. I will also have regular videos outside of the stream that I'll be putting out periodically. So until next time, live boldly and be creative. Bye bye.